Okay, so the network hasn't been so good. I'm just hoping it'll behave. So here I am today. I'll try again. If it fails, then obviously I'll do it from another location. I think this one is a bit dodgy. But anyway, like I said, I'm in the middle of town, and today I've been thinking deeply about doing this transmission, in which I'm going to really explain to you guys very openly and very simply what's going on. And not only what's going on, why we have this standoff, and what really is the truth that nobody really wants to face. Because no one wants to face this truth, so let me speak about it. I've got about four phone calls today, and so I'll try and do this as briefly and as quickly as possible so that you're able to see and get what's going on. So let's talk about this standoff. Let's talk about this whole situation. I mean, twice, in fact 3 times if you add the 2 times when the body was supposed to be repatriated to Zambia. The first one was the other Wednesday, the other one was this past Wednesday, and then this burial which was stopped by Attorney General's filing in. A very unfortunate situation. And before I even give my position, because it's gonna be a bit antagonistic, let me say it right off the bat so that those of you who are pissed off get pissed off in advance. But what I'm about to say is opposite. That's why I have to give my position. I think those who've been following me, a lot of people say, no, you know, as a reverend, you should be non-partisan. I think I'm not a pastor running a church, so I haven't really got any problems with declaring my interests. So it's very important to realize that I am most sympathetic to this government. So that bit, let it just be out there in the open. I am most sympathetic to this government and to the president. So in other words, as far as I'm concerned, I still will give my vote to this president in 2026. But, because what I'm about to say now has to be understood, and that's why I've said that. I needed to bring that out there so that people don't start accusing me. But, let's talk about the reality of what's going on. So it is known and it is public that I am in support of the body being repatriated back to Zambia. But we know that this situation has been very tense, very painful, especially for the Lungu family. And so today I want to give my take, because I've had to stew on this for a while. There's been all manner of stories, and I'm going to dispel every one of them so that I come to what's really going on. So the first story, in fact there are 4 now. So the first story is that, I forgot what the first story is. That Lungu is alive. No, he's not. He's not alive. That I can tell you. Unless otherwise, the whole situation and everything about it dictates and demonstrates clearly that this man is not alive. There's nothing like him being alive. Because all you need to do is sit down and do the logistics and think about how exactly he's going to pull it off. How will he pull it off? On what basis? What is the benefit of playing dead? How does he gain? So that he runs away? No. That whole thing doesn't add water. It's completely baseless. It doesn't hold any water whatsoever. I'm happy to argue further about it, but for now, I'm rushing to my reasons. The second one, that there are ritualistic activities that will be taking place with his body. Why do they want the body? A well-known vlogger was on air the other day talking about communicating with the dead, and the dead told them in a dream. I'm here to tell you, there are serious rituals that go on any given time with everyone all over the place. It is not going to be the first time or the second time that you have all these funny, dodgy arrangements going on with rituals. So the ritual thing doesn't hold any water whatsoever. Besides, if you have any powerful priest like Dr. Bishop Father Alec Banda, who is standing with the family, praying and doing all those procedures in that setup, I assure you that body is bound by the cover of the prayer made by the priest, by the water, by the blood, and by the witness. There are prayers that are done, and those prayers seal the body from all powers of darkness, unless they are already partakers of powers of darkness. So the ritual thing is lame. Sorry, it's just lame. It doesn't add up. Again, I'm happy to do arguments afterwards. The third one, that they wanted to smuggle money. Somebody told me $20 million. I always ask people, have you seen $20 million with your eyes? Have you seen it? It would be nice for you. I challenge you, go on the internet, type $20 million and how it looks like in cash. Obviously in $100 bills. Just type that and then see how much it is. Even just $1 million, let's drop it down to $1 million. Where would you fit $1 million in that coffin? Some people say, no, that's why they didn't want to open it. Fine, granted. There's a human body in there, and then maybe it's got special linings underneath. Just $1 million will not fit in there. Anybody who knows what $1 million looks like, it will not fit in there. But 20 million, ridiculous. Or no, maybe they'll smuggle in something else. Like what? See, those bodies, when they're in that country like South Africa and they're traveling to come here, they are specially sealed with all manner of papers and procedures to ensure that that body goes in with all the approvals. There's a whole process involved in there. You can't put anything in there. No, but they were going to use a private plane. Simple explanation. Those are people that had interests with Dr. Lungu. Many may not realize that there's a lot of friends of Dr. Lungu who paid and facilitated and ensured that everything to do with Dr. Lungu's travel was taken care of. So, the sending of that plane was really just to spite the government and let the government know that we don't need your planes. We don't need any of your things. We can do it ourselves. That's really the bottom line with the plane. People could argue all day, but that's the reason. So there's nothing glamorous about the situation. So let me give you, and there's another one I forgot. He was on a Zimbabwean passport. On that one, I even agree with Makebi Zulu. Do you realize that for President Lungu to leave Zambia, he had to go through this airport, right? You do realize that, right? And when you go to an airport, anybody who's traveled knows that when you go to an airport, they are going to take your passport. There's a little paper they give you to fill in with your details, and they stamp both. And then they will keep the other paper for records. And then you go with your passport. The same stamp on the passport is the same stamp on that paper for their records. By the way, you will be scanned, you will do fingerprints, you will do all manner of things. So the document you travel with is genuine. And that document is obviously Dr. Lungu's document. It is his passport. Because if it is not his passport, then how did he leave Zambia? See? So that story about Zimbabwe is just another one of those, as the Zambians say, it doesn't hold water. He definitely went with his document. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's records at immigration. As simple as that. Okay? So which brings us now to the real issue. So let me give you the real issue. And it's like I'm saying, it's not glamorous. You know, people look for reasons because obviously they are frustrated. They are wondering what's going on. There's a lot of speculation, and social media is always full of all manner of stories. So people really go to town on these things. But here's the reality. And there are three things. One, since this man has been ill for a while and he's been going to access his meds, the only minus with and you know, as he was going to access his meds and treatment, it is true that Thabo Kawana, the PS, had also gone there, and I believe they must have bumped into each other at a clinic, or I don't know, whatever was going on. Maybe he went to check on him, you know, whatever. But you do recall that PS information, Thabo Kawana came and summarily released information claiming that he's sick. And you remember members of the Patriotic Front leadership came very strongly to dispute it and called Kawana all manner of names and claimed that government is trying to gain mileage. And you remember that story. I don't know why people forget that story was told. So we know that he was sick. They just denied it. But he was sick, and that's why there was the claim that he was denied to travel because they were blocking him to go access his treatment as a private citizen. But finally they did allow him. So some people are saying the PS lied. He may have lied, I disagree, but he may have lied about the time that they blocked him. But they did later allow him to travel, because how else did he get into South Africa? Did he, you know, dematerialize in Zambia and rematerialize over there, or did he travel? Of course he traveled. So which means if he traveled, it means he used the document, it means he went through the airport, it means he was received on the other side. So definitely he traveled and he was permitted to travel. But was he blocked before? Of course he was, because he is on record clearly stating that he was blocked at one time from traveling for different international engagements. So he traveled and he went there. So here's the thing. The president has been sick a long time. And unfortunately, he succumbed to his illness. And when he succumbed to his illness, you must realize that the man was under chemo. Well, at least that's what we hear. So if the man was under chemo, you do realize that chemo is very powerful, right? My own mother was in chemo at one point with 4 months to live, and it was very bad. Chemo hits you hard. It degenerates you in so many ways. It's not even funny. So it stands to reason, number one, that the president was certainly quite ill. And so if he was ill, he obviously had deteriorated, in terms of his body, in terms of his look. He may have been even frail, we don't know. Now, if that be the case, and then he passes on, what do you think would happen? What do you think the state of his body would be like? As if that's not enough. At no time was there ever a plan that he was going to be, treated with preservative and then kept around for a long time, okay? And the fact that wasn't done, because I don't think it was ever on the plan that they were going to preserve him for a prolonged period of time. Remember when Mwambazi passed on, he was injected with very powerful, preservatives and what they call formaldehyde, and then, preserved for body viewing purposes. That's what also happened to President Sata. That's what also happened to well, I can't say about the others, but these two, at least I know. And so what that means is their bodies can be out there for a while. I honestly do not think that was something that was done. And this thing has been just going out on and on and on, dragged and dragged and dragged. And it stands to reason that the state of his body following his death because of cancer would not be in a good state. As I sat there listening to Makebi the other day, I really racked my brain to figure, why doesn't the family want body viewing? And it struck me. He's been sick. He's now 3 weeks not interned in the ground. 3 weeks. I don't think his body would be in a great state. I really, really don't think so. So therefore, that is a very big factor to mean that the family would not want his body seen in its current state. That's the most sensible reason. And that's why I'm saying what I'm going to tell you is not even dramatic or exciting. It's just facts. That's the most logical answer. Some people want strange answers. It's as simple as that. The body has degenerated. We continue. The other factor, which I think for me is huge and cannot be ignored, is the family is not amused. And it doesn't matter what people want to say. It doesn't matter what we may all feel. The family is furious. Why are they furious? Because that man, the president, not only found himself in problems because he decided to get back into politics, that's his business. The law was brought against him to block him from doing that. And further, his family found themselves in trouble with the law, being called for interviews, and cases were opened and all sorts of things were going on. I mean, that's not a secret. Makebi was very clear about it at the funeral speech, I think yesterday. So that alone means that the family is not amused. And there's no way that President Lungu would be amused. I don't know what thinking people have. He is not going to be amused at all. At all. So, and remember, there was so much going on. I mean, we still remember the videos of him escorting the wife to the court and coming back, properties being taken, all these guys under investigation. I mean, look, my point here isn't whether it's right or wrong, whether they stole or didn't steal. That's not my argument. My argument is the family is pissed off. And as far as they are concerned, there was persecution on the president. Remember, some people say, no, the president didn't mistreat Lungu. I don't know what you would call sending a battalion to his house, breaking the whole gate, and forcibly taking the wife from there. I don't know what you'd call that. Maybe it's not persecution in your books. So, the Lungu family has gone through quite a bit. And I'm not in any way saying it's bad or good. The point is they have actually gone under crap. And because of that, they are not amused. And so, put yourself in their shoes. That's my argument. Remember, I declared my position at the beginning of this video. So you know that I'm speaking purely from a place of empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of the Lungus. And whether President Lungu's wishes were that HH should be nowhere near the body or not is immaterial. The family, okay, the family were categorical that these were the last wishes. Why? Because President Lungu had no love for HH. That's not even a secret. They didn't. I mean, HH, I feel, exercised a lot of restraint. But either way, the instruments of authority in terms of the police and whatever still exercised a lot of force in this case. I still remember the funny video where President Lungu is at court and he says he would like to walk down the street and they stopped him. Just walking down the street. There's another time he goes to bail out or to answer a call out at Woodlands Police and he says, I'd like to go buy water. And it was a big issue. Yeah, Evans, it's true. They did a lot of wrong to ECL.Must. That is not even a secret. But there's a difference, my friends. Let's be objective here. When President ECL.Must was being persecuted, he was an ordinary citizen. That bit, it doesn't matter how much we can be pissed off and annoyed with the PF. I was. But it doesn't change the fact he was an ordinary citizen. And to imagine an ordinary citizen in a convoy overtaking a presidential convoy. We can argue all day if you want to, but that was out of order. And so, on that alone, they obviously took advantage, brought in all the treason things, and really mistreated HH. That I won't refuse. So in a way, this was almost like a tit-for-tat situation going on. And it really put a lot of mess and pressure on the Lungus. So the Lungus were pissed off. That's the bottom line. Fair or not fair, right or not right, the Lungus are upset. And so their argument is very simple. We don't want to have anything to do with HH. Simple. That's their position. So they are pissed off. They are angry. They are livid. They feel mistreated. They feel brutalized. They feel victimized. Remember, it's their feeling. I'm not saying whether it's true or not true. We can argue all day about that. But these things are subjective. They feel that way. And so, as a result, they have been very categorical about why. And the argument here is very interesting. The argument is, whether they've said it or not, but I can tell you what the argument is. The argument is, why would this man who mistreated our father and husband so much want now to come and be like chief mourner or chief overseer of the funeral procession? No, they've refused. They say no, hell no, 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 no. They've refused. That's their position. We can argue all we want, but that's their position. So they are very upset. And then the third factor, so they are very upset. That bit at least. Number three. So number three, which is very critical, is their voices. I do not envy the position that the Lungus are in right now. The number of voices speaking into their lives right now is insane. And you must remember that these voices are not just influential in friendship, they are influential in finances as well. Okay, so the situation is very painful and unadmirable. They sit in a very painful spot. But the bottom line is the family don't want. That's the bottom line. So here's the thing now. That's very interesting that has come up. And that'll be my closing point. So we know what's going on. Nothing like passports. Simple. The body is degenerated, so they just don't want an open funeral. Forget about that. 2, the family is pissed off. 3, there are big influencers speaking. So what's the bottom line? It's interesting. Those who are in South Africa, I've got a number of colleagues of mine who are good friends of mine who are PF. And we agree to disagree because they have their position, I have my position. At the beginning of this video, I was very categorical that I'm more for this government. But on this one, my friends, if we want to make progress, we need to make a very tough decision as government. Here's the position. Here's the position. Government wants to preside over this thing and create a state funeral. The family says, and I've heard this, family, Patriotic Front, pretty much everybody there. They are saying, all of us want Lungu buried in Lusaka. All of us want Lungu buried in Lusaka. All of us want Lungu given all the honors. All of us want Lungu to receive his last respects. They all agree. I think everybody, you can right now try. PF, Lungu family, UPND, government, everybody is agreeable with Lungu being buried in Lusaka. You can try it right now and ask. But there's a caveat to that. And everybody knows what the caveat is. The caveat is simple. They are saying, we don't want President HH to preside. They have been saying that. Makebi said it last time when they cancelled that other trip, which shocked everybody the other Wednesday, whenever that was. That was their position. So, this is the time now where we must all ask ourselves this question. Boniface has asked the question. That's it. Boniface says, so why can't HH stay away from the funeral and delegate his authority? Some people have argued and said, no, it can't be a state funeral if the head of state is not there. And I think a number of people have raised very valid arguments over this and said, when you have a state funeral and it is attended by a minister or a vice president or whatever, or those people are not present but it's been designated a state funeral, does it stop being a state funeral? Does it stop being a state event? We all know the answer is, it still is a state event. So it is very easy for our president to delegate that whole thing. And to be honest, guys, if we want to make progress with this thing and just stop being tired, I think that's the most sensible thing to do. Let our president stay away. There's no love lost between HH and the Lungu family. No love lost. They never liked each other. Each one feels they were victimized by the other. That's the reality. So, let's do it. Let our president stay away. Simple. Let him delegate the vice president or whoever and let them do it, and he just stays away. I think for me, that's it. And since especially the fact that we have no legislation or law, I think State Council Sangwa was very categorical when he said there's been no law. It doesn't exist. So there's no legislation, there's no law to say that the president must be present. In fact, the whole aspect of state funerals, there's just no law. So I feel for me, that's the solution right now. These guys have been so difficult. They are not interested. And rather than us going round in circles, round in circles, round in circles, just let them do what they want. Let's still give him his state funeral and let the president stay away. Simple. Because we can't go around. And Annie asked, why does the family fail to forgive? They're pissed off. That's why. That's the answer. I can't give any other answer. They're angry. When you're angry, sorry to use that example, I'm really sorry, I don't mean it. But suppose you catch your husband live with your niece at your house, slept with the niece, and then, he's very sorry. and he says, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, and he keeps saying he's sorry, but you're angry, are you going to forgive him then? Or are you going to take time? So let's be real, my friends, and let's just agree. This is my answer. All these stories are just being spun to create a storm out of a teacup. And in the words of Simon Moralaine, Lungu is now sitting in what they call legal purgatory. But the truth is, this thing can be solved tomorrow if the president just stays away. I may not agree with it, but that's what the family wants. And we need this country to move forward. Let him stay away. Simple. Let him just stay away. Let them have the vice president and, I don't know, army generals and whatever. Let them do whatever they need to do. And let's move on. I don't think it can be problematic. That's my view. So this thing really falls right square back to government. If this is what they want. If everybody wants Lungu buried in Osaka, but the family says they don't want the president, the head of state, to be there, then I think the solution is simple. Let the head of state not be there. So if the head of state insists being there, that becomes really problematic, especially because there's no law. There's no law. Okay? So I think that's the solution, and that's the bottom line. It's not a nice one, but it is what it is, and that's what the family wants. And if we're going to move as a nation, let's just do that. I think the president has done his best. No one can argue with that. He's sent envoys, he's done whatever they wanted to do, words, what, messages, whatever, you name it, you name it, you name it. Now the Attorney General, whatever, but we're done. We're done. So that's my view. So I hope people can understand and give the president a break. And I also hope the president can have the courage to stay away in the name of peace and progress. All right, guys, that was my take. Never really nice. Some people obviously are upset with me, and there are all points that I've raised, but so much goodwill is gone now. And imagine how many people traveled all the way to South Africa there, only to be stuck again. So I feel let's just stop the circus. Let's agree and let them just do the state funeral minus the president. Thanks, guys. You be blessed. Take care. Hey.